pleased to see you once more, Hierarch. I had hoped that our next interaction would be your announcement of Ayer's reclamation.
As did I. Instead, the Templar have fallen.
Then the threat is greater than I realized.
We cannot let the same fate befall Shakuras.
It is too late for that. Amon Zerg poured through the warp gate as a tide of flesh and blade. They have already overrun Telemetros and are nearing the shrines of Lizul. This world is lost. With such an infestation, Shakuras must be destroyed.
Destroy Shakuras? I will not permit this.
Permit? Shakuras was my people's home long before we offered yours sanctuary upon it. I will not let this world be a den for Amon's forces. Worlds may fall to ash. What matters is that we endure.
To lose Shakuras and Ayer.
We are a vagabond people, Artanis. Our true home has always been Ayer. Let us reclaim it together.
It is fitting that the daughter of Raja Gal decides the fate of the world she helped forge. Let us make preparations at once.
Alright, welcome back to StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void.
Hierarch, I have powered up a new ship subsystem. You can review it in the solar core now.
This is Episode 8, Last Stand, getting underway. And our first stop is the solar core. And we've unlocked the third column. So let's check out these abilities. Nexus Overcharge, it turns your Nexus into basically a cannon that does 20 damage. Orbital Assimilator allows you to harvest Vespene gas without manning the extractors with probes. Warp Harmonization allows you to warp in like fighter jets, which we don't have yet, and robots like Immortals and stuff like that. Now ordinarily in this third column you go with Orbital Assimilator. It makes the most sense, but for this next mission we're going with Nexus Overcharge, and you'll kind of understand why once we get into it.
You have become a mighty warrior since last we fought together, Artanis. Even these Dark Templar revere you as if you were a Dune himself. If only Tassadar could have lived to see what you've become.
I often think about him, of how different these events would have been if you were still in command.
You are Hierarch now. Your doubts do not honor you or him.
Yet, they persist. Tassadar's shadow looms large over my every action.
You must move from it, old friend. For none of us can truly grow while still in the shadow of his mentor.
What have you discovered about the Keystone, Phase Smith?
Only that my skills may be inadequate to assess it.
Explain.
Imagine the Terrans obtained one of our fabrication matrices. Could their scientists ever understand its engineering? The task set before me is of a similar scale. The Cell Naga were beings beyond our understanding.
Keep working, Karax. I have faith in you.
I welcome you, Hierarch. Cloaked warriors are now available for deployment.
Okay, so we unlocked Dark Templar last mission, so these are the factions. The Nerazim faction, just called Dark Templar, has Shadow Fury. It does this area effect attack, and they're invulnerable while they do it.
Vengeance for Ayer.
And then the Ayer faction is the Avenger, and they basically get resurrected at the Dark Templar Shrine when they die. Now that sounds just amazing. You could just make Dark Templars and never have to make them again, kind of thing. And it is pretty awesome, but it turns out the Shadow Fury on the Dark Templar is the more valuable.
I have returned.
Now we go with Dragoon here. It's one of the few times we do that on the Ranged Warrior.
The enemy shall be purified.
And I consider Sentinel because, similar to Avengers, they just get resurrected when they
The
die.
Shadow Guard waits.
But it turns out the Centurion stun is just too good to pass up, so we go with Centurion.
The evacuation ships have reported in. All are present and are being escorted by the Spear of Adun. Of all the Templar, you never wavered in the belief that our two peoples could live in unity. It is something I admired in you.
It is ironic to hear you say this. All this time, I believed you were reluctant to accept the unity I sought.
You and I had many a disagreement in the Twilight Council. For day by day, I saw my people losing what they were. I saw our precious old ways erode.
You wished to preserve them.
I am Nerazim, Dark Templar. I hold great pride in my people.
But you are also Protoss. That is the greater affiliation.
That is not what the Conclave believed when we were exiled long ago. Your kind had ire. Our culture is all we ever had. This was not an easy decision, but I would rather see Shakuras destroyed than overwhelmed by Amon's Zerg. We have much to plan, Hierarch.
Tell me, Vorazun, how will we bring destruction to your world?
The Zelnaga Temple's phase prism can be overloaded, forcing a spike of energy into the planet's core. Enough of a charge, and the planet will shatter. Amon will not possess my world.
I've been thinking about this choice.
Are you reconsidering?
No. My time here has reminded me of the courage of your people. That we must fight. If we are to suffer, then so too will Amon. We will lure as many of Amon's hybrid and Zerg through the gateway as we can. Only once enough are through to wound him will we overload the temple and flee.
You mean to bleed him? Bold. But we can't risk the forces it would require to do such a thing.
Leave that to me, Matriarch. I have learned much from the Dark Templar.
Our forces have secured the Zelnaga Temple grounds. Artemis, how go your preparations?
I am configuring the temple now, but without the Uraj and the Callus, it will take time.
Time is not all it will take. The temple's energies are regulated by 3 Zenith Stones. Only once they are destroyed can the temple be overloaded.
Until then, we must defend it from the Zerg and their hybrid masters.
The Nerazim have long used Kadaran monoliths to protect our lands. I see your Phasesmith has become familiar with them.
Indeed, Matriarch. The monoliths are quite deadly and fire a considerable distance. They should prove instrumental in our defense.
The moment has come. Let us begin.
Fear is an illusion.
The sooner the Zenith Stones are destroyed, the better off we shall be. The Zerg will overwhelm the temple grounds shortly.
Agreed. Although, should it become necessary, my Dark Templar can sneak through the enemy and destroy the stones.
Exercise caution when attacking a Zenith Stone. The energies within may become volatile as it is damaged.
All right, here we go with Last Stand. This is the mission that held me up on my first brutal playthrough for like 4 nights. I think total of over 14 hours of gameplay before I got this one down.
The Zerg gather for an attack to the southwest. Ignite your blades, warriors.
Now, because I was stuck, I did a lot of research, watched several YouTube videos of this mission, different strategies, different players, and ultimately I went with Isis Gaming, the guy who did that crazy all-in video from Wings of Liberty. If you recall, he like mind-controlled like the entire Zerg swarm and then killed all the Zerg bases. So this strat, at least up to a point, is modeled after him. Okay, so you're seeing Solar Lance again. Again, it's just a great ability, does so much damage in there. It helps clear out a lot of those enemies guarding the Zenith Stone, and most important, the detectors that would uncover the Dark Templar. And that Shadow Fury, you see that AE bouncing around that the Nerazim faction Dark Templar do is just, it's so good, just in general, and especially on this mission.
Another brood of Zerg is preparing to attack from a hive to the northwest.
Okay, base-wise, we got a Dark Templar shrine up, because we're going to continue to make them and use them, at least initially. We're having to man our extractors with probes. That's the downside to not taking orbital assimilators. The upside, recall we took Nexus Overcharge. So here, check this out. We're actually going to make Nexuses at the choke points, these 3 stairwells around the temple. And later, the 4th one in the back, you'll see enemies come in the back as well. So, again, this is Isis Gaming and his strategy. By having Nexus Overcharge, which turns Nexuses into cannons, like big giant turrets, and because they're Nexuses and they have massive, health and massive shields, they're going to be able to block the choke points better than just basic cannons or even the monoliths, the new structures, which we will make a lot of, but the Nexus end up being a better way to block these choke points, and they're very survivable because they have just massive hit points and shields.
Artanis, our observers are reporting a vast number of Zerg have poured onto Shakuris.
And yet, not a single hybrid. Amon is testing our resolve.
So as for the mission and the main objective, you get the idea. Artanis wants to hold out as long as possible before overloading the temple, so that as many of Amon's Zerg and hybrid have warped through all the way from Aiur to here, and we can destroy as many of them as possible when they overload the temple and blow up the planet.
The Zerg approach the temple from the southeastern accessway.
And that's why there's that counter in the upper right in the blue box. That's how many Zerg are, warping through and arriving on Shakuris. So basically, just to beat the mission, you have to get it to 1 billion Zerg, right? Then you pass. But you're going to hear in a minute, Karax comes on and says, "Hey, I just realized there's this, solarite cache beneath the temple. If you can hold out till 1.5 billion Zerg, then you get your bonus objective of plus 10 solarite, right?" And doing that, holding out till 1.5 billion, that is what ends up being so incredibly hard about this mission.
Ready yourselves, Templar. The Zerg are moving to assault both sides of the temple. It is done. The Zenith Stones have been destroyed. Once your task is complete, the temple can be overloaded.
Understood. And the temple alignment is proceeding well. Now, we wait for the Zerg.
Okay, achievement-wise, I've actually already gotten the 2 for this one on other attempts, but what you're going to see in this take is satisfactory for those achievements. The first is called Rush Hour, destroy the 3 Zenith Stones before the 10-minute mark. We had them down at 7.5 minutes. And then the other one is called Global Swarming, which is to hold out for 1.8 billion, not just the 1.5 billion needed for the bonus objective, but 1.8. and we're gonna make it that far and a little bit beyond. So you're seeing how good Solar Lance is. That's one thing. If you come here and do Shakuras right after I like I kept mentioning I was putting off for a reason, well, that's one of the reasons you don't end up having enough Solarite to come to this mission with Solar Lance if you do it immediately after the missions. The other thing you won't be able to have is Nexus Overcharge. Recall, we just unlocked that ability after last mission, so without that, we wouldn't be able to do this strategy.
Curious. There are overlords closing on the temple grounds.
I have seen this tactic before. They are transporting ground forces. Destroy the overlords, quickly.
Okay, this is the part where you start to get backdoored. It's another thing that makes it particularly hard, so you have to choke off the back in addition to these other 3 stairwells. This initial attack from the back is nothing. It's a joke. But the things that end up starting to come from the back are really, really hard later down the line.
Our readouts indicate there are nearly 500 million Zerg on Shakuras. All of them moving for this temple.
Let them come. The Templar will endure.
Okay, you may be wondering, like, what are you doing? You just ordered your guys to kill that stuff, and I had earlier killed a monolith and a pylon right there. The reason I do that is to make room. That stairwell right here, it's wider than the others, and you can actually fit 3 nexuses. See how I have 3 going? The second and third are just now warping in, but that's why you do that. And again, I got that from Isis Gaming in his video, and it ends up being great because 3, is better than 2. Now, another key part to the strategy with the Dark Templars is, you notice I kind of put them on the outside, the dangerous side where the waves are coming in. And the reason you do that is because they can block. The enemies come in and they're physically blocked from attacking stuff, but also they're cloaked, so they're going to be able to kill stuff from stealth that is getting choked up at the stairwells in front of the nexuses.
Be on guard, warriors. The Zerg are attacking the temple from all 3 sides at once.
You have not enough. Base is under attack.
So you see how well that works? I mean, it's a great strat and it works really well. The only kind of trick to it is that sometimes the waves of enemies come with detectors. Actually, from this point on, they will always have a detector, so that will uncover your Dark Templar and they'll get killed. But first of all, sometimes once you get enough cannons and monoliths up, sometimes they'll shoot down the detectors and your Dark Templar will live. And then the other thing is you notice how I have pylons really close by the front lines. Their area effect extends out past the Nexus onto the stairwells, and because of that, using warp gates, I can replenish my front lines of Dark Templar and warp them in on the other side of the Nexus where they need to be.
From the shadows I come.
You have not enough minerals. You have not enough minerals.
The Master's gaze falls on your shadowed world.
By the gods, I have never seen such abomination. Warriors, focus all cannons on the hybrid. We must defend the temple.
Okay, so the hybrid have shown up now. They're going to be included in all waves from all directions. And as for that back kind of choke point, things float in. They're all aerial targets from back there. There's actually not a land ramp there. They all come in by air. So you need air defense back there. And that's where the Dragoons come into play. Stalkers are great and all, but Dragoons actually hit harder. They do more damage. Okay, other than all of that, it's catering monoliths. You see these big giant turrets that I keep making a bunch of. That's the new unit, kind of not new unit, but new structure for this mission. And boy, are they awesome. I mean, they're big, they take up a lot of space, and they're expensive, 300 minerals, 100 gas each. But boy, they hit like a truck, and they just have a massive long range. So they're great on this mission.
Hierarch, I have never borne witness to so many Zerg. Was this the threat my mother once faced?
No, Matriarch. This threat is a far greater one, and it will take all we have to resist it.
gas. Base is under attack.
Okay, slowly but surely we're starting to fill up all the available space with these monoliths and also shield batteries, because they will heal the shields of the monoliths as well as the nexuses. So it's not perfect placement, it's not the best layout or design, but when you're doing this mission and you're under the gun, and especially when you're recording it, it becomes very, very frantic, and the result oftentimes like this is just not optimal, not perfectly efficient layout. Now, one thing I noticed with all the other YouTube videos is most people, in addition to shield batteries and the Kadarin monoliths, they use the regular photon cannons. And I found, I don't know, it's just because I'm not that good, but whenever I spent time and resources putting up cannon lines, I just would lose the mission. They're great because they're small and you can fit them in everywhere, and they kind of complement the monoliths. But hey, if you're pressed for time and resources, just go with the best you can, and that's the monoliths. And when I do that, I win.
The moment approaches, warriors. The temple is realigning. It will be ready soon.
Hierarch, I have discovered a solarite cache beneath the Zelnaga temple. If we can hold longer, I should be able to retrieve it.
Begin the retrieval process, Karax. We will hold the temple as long as we can.
You require more Vespene gas. Base is under attack. Battle is upon us. You require more Vespene. Base is under attack. Base is under attack. You require more Vespene gas. Engaging forward. Base is under attack. Base is under attack. You require more Vespene gas. Base is under attack. You must. Base is under attack. You require more Vespene. Your warriors have engaged. Base is under attack.
The temple thrums with energy. It is ready.
Solarite retrieval is still in progress. If we can hold on just a while longer.
Base is under attack. Base is under attack. Is upon us. Base is under attack. Base is under attack. Base is under attack.
Okay, we're just about to 1.2 billion at this point. You see I lost one Nexus here. Banelings are starting to come in the waves, and those do, a lot of damage, especially to structures. So, and you notice from just before the 1 billion point until now, I haven't been able to get a word in edgewise because it's just non-stop. And this is, like I said, this is the point where most people just get broken, and it's what makes it so hard to get that bonus objective. Again, I never said this was the hardest mission to complete. That would have to probably go to Essence of Eternity or maybe Salvation. But the hardest to complete and get the bonus objective this is it, and you're seeing why. It's just, it doesn't let up, man. So if you're not fully fortified by this point, then you're done.
Base is under attack. Base is under attack. Base is under attack.
And the other thing that really cramps your progress here is that creep is starting to land and take up space in your base. And if there's creep on the ground, you can't build, right? So these little creep pods start coming in and blowing up and making it really hard to build and fortify.
Our pylon is base is under attack. Base is under attack. Base is under attack.
It is done. The Solarite has been successfully warped aboard the Spear of Adun.
Base is under attack.
Okay, great news. We made it to the 1.5 billion and we're going to get the bonus Solarite. Bad news is while I was paying attention to other things, nexuses have fallen, monoliths have been broken, so we're really starting to get broken pretty bad here. But that's all you can do. Just try to hang on, keep rebuilding, do the best you can.
Our pylon is Our pylon is under attack. You require more discipline.
From the shadows I come.
Our pylon is under attack. Base is under attack. Our pylon is under attack.
Okay, obviously at this point we're not going to be able to hold on. It's all just falling apart, and that's how this mission goes. But the good news is we not only made it to 1.5 billion, but we're past 1.8, so you're seeing the achievement Global Swarming, and not a bad take, all things considered, believe it or not. And in case you're wondering, Isis Gaming, he gets to 2.6 billion. So a little better than me here, but a fun, well-fought victory, and all in all, a successful mission.
Templar! Initiate dimensional recall! Get to safety, now!
Nidus worms. The Zerg are poised to breach the temple.
Have faith, Matriarch. Your fallen people cry out for vengeance, and they shall have it.
Of our kind suffer, separated from the glory of the Kala. Choose the mantle of Dark Templar.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Double big time. Artanis kicking ass. Wow. That's The Last Stand, Evatron. You got it with achievements. This is StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. We'll see you in the next episode.